My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, and I later discovered she forged my signature to transfer $200, $0 from our joint account into her sister's name. Now she's trying to deny everything in court. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling everyone how I found out my wife, Emily, was cheating on me with our neighbor, and that she'd forged my signature to steal $200, $0 from our joint account to give to her sister. It all happened so fast, like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. But I guess I should start from the beginning, how I noticed the signs, how it all unraveled, and how I suddenly found myself in the middle of a mess I never saw coming. Emily and I had been together for almost 10 years. We met in college, married after a few years of dating, and for a long time I thought we had a pretty, solid relationship. She was beautiful, ambitious, and seemed to genuinely love me, or at least that's what I believed. But over the last 6 months I started noticing little things. She was more distant, secretive even. She'd hide her phone whenever I walked into the room. Her phone bill started to get suspicious, text messages at odd hours, calls she quickly silenced when I came near. I brushed it off at first, telling myself she was just stressed with work or dealing with family stuff. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then, there was the weekend I decided to surprise her at her sister's house. Emily had told me she was going out shopping, but I had a gut feeling she was hiding something. I took a different route just to see if I could catch her in the act. And what I saw was enough to make my stomach drop. I saw her and our neighbor Jake in her sister's backyard, kissing hard. They didn't see me, but I saw everything. Her hands were all over him, and they looked like they were about to get into a car together. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what I just saw. My mind was racing, trying to figure out if I was imagining it, but there was no denying it. Emily was cheating on me with Jake right in front of my face. I didn't confront her immediately, not then. I needed time to think, to process what I'd just seen. But I knew I couldn't ignore it. The next day I started digging. I looked through her phone, her emails, her social media. And sure enough, I found messages, flirty, explicit, outright cheating messages between her and Jake. They'd been sneaking around for months, probably longer. Emily had always been a bit bitchy when I questioned her about her late nights or her secretive phone habits, but I never suspected she'd go this far. She lied her way through every conversation, told me I was paranoid or imagining things, that she loved me and would never do anything to hurt me. But her actions told a different story. What hit me even harder was discovering the financial betrayal. One day I was checking our bank account out of curiosity, and I noticed something strange. An unauthorized transfer of $200, $0 gone. I immediately called the bank and they confirmed it was a forged signature signed with my name. My heart stopped. I couldn't believe it. Emily had forged my signature to transfer that money into her sister's account. Why? What was she planning? How could she do this? And the worst part, she was trying to deny everything in court, claiming I had no idea about the transfer and that she was innocent. But I knew the truth. I saw the signatures, I knew she'd forged my name, and I had proof. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was drowning. I'd trusted her with everything, my life, my money, my love. And she'd thrown it all away, not just once but repeatedly. It was like watching someone I loved turn into a stranger, someone capable of lying, cheating, and stealing from me without remorse. I felt angry, hurt, betrayed, and stupid for not seeing it sooner. But the biggest shock was realizing that she was trying to deny everything, even when I had evidence. It made me furious, furious at her, at myself for not noticing sooner, and at the whole situation for turning my life upside down so suddenly. That's where I stand now, facing the nightmare of her affair, her lies, and her theft. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know I need to figure out how to get through this. I need to decide whether I fight for my marriage or cut my losses and move on. One thing's clear, I can't trust Emily anymore. And I definitely can't ignore what she's done. How does a person even come back from this? I'm still trying to find the answer. After I uncovered everything, the affair, the forged signature, the stolen money, the world didn't just feel like it was falling apart, it was shattering around me. I remember standing there in our living room, staring at the bank statements, her secret messages, and the photos I secretly took of her and Jake that day. My hands were trembling, my mind racing. I couldn't believe I'd been played so badly, and honestly, I felt like a fool for not noticing sooner. How did I miss all the signs? How did I let her lie to my face for so long? The anger took over first, pure, hot rage that made my chest tighten. I wanted to yell, to break something, to make her feel as betrayed as I did, but I knew that wouldn't fix anything. So I just sat there trying to breathe, trying to keep my composure. I had to think. What was I going to do? How could I confront her without losing it completely? That night I called her. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money, the forged signature. Her reaction was honestly shocking. She played the victim card immediately, crying, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She said Jake was just a friend, that she loved me and never meant for any of this to happen. She told me I was overreacting, that I was crazy for even suspecting her. She insisted she was innocent, that I was just insecure, that I needed to trust her more. But I wasn't buying any of it. I knew her too well, and her tone, her lies, they didn't match her actions. I felt so many things at once: confusion, heartbreak, anger. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd betrayed me in the worst ways possible. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything, trying to find some rational explanation, but there wasn't one. She lied, cheated, stole from me, and then tried to gaslight me into believing I was the crazy one. It was a slap in the face, a punch to the gut. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? In the days that followed, I decided I needed to gather more evidence before making any moves. I hired a private investigator to look into her financial dealings and her relationship with Jake. I also started recording conversations, just in case I needed proof in court. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, pretending to be the innocent wife, crying about how I was accusing her without proof, trying to turn everyone against me. She told friends and family I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that she was the victim here. The nerve of her to play that card when I had the bank statements and the forged signature. But she's good at lying, and she's always been a master manipulator. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and utterly lost. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, but now I wasn't sure what love even meant anymore. It's one thing to be cheated on, but to have your own wife steal from you, forge your signature, and then deny everything, that's a whole other level of betrayal. I'd always prided myself on being a good husband, a loyal partner. And here I was, feeling like I'd been played for a fool. I knew I had to act carefully. This wasn't just about catching her in a lie anymore. It was about protecting myself legally and financially. I started talking to a lawyer, trying to understand my rights and what steps I could take to stop her from draining any more money or hiding evidence. The lawyer told me I had a strong case, especially with the forged signature and the proof of her affair. But it was going to be a long, messy process, and I had to prepare myself for a fight. Throughout this ordeal, I kept asking myself how I got here. How did the woman I loved and trusted so completely turn into someone capable of lying, cheating, and stealing? And honestly, I still don't have a clear answer. Maybe I missed the signs. Maybe I was too blind to see her true colors. Or maybe she's just a different person entirely, someone I never really knew. All I know is that I'm now standing at a crossroads, and I have to decide whether to fight for what's left of my marriage or walk away from the wreckage she created. One thing's for sure, I'm not going down without a fight. I've got everything I need to prove what she's done, and I'm determined to get justice. But I also know that even if I win in court, the emotional damage might never fully heal. Still, I owe it to myself to see this through, to hold her accountable and reclaim what's left of my life. I just hope I'm strong enough to handle whatever fallout comes next. Once I had the evidence, I knew I couldn't just sit around waiting for things to blow over. Emily kept up her act, pretending to be the innocent victim, crying and begging me to believe her. She spun stories about how she was stressed, how Jake was just a bad influence, and how I was paranoid for suspecting her. She even accused me of spying on her, claiming I was the one invading her privacy. But I knew better. I had the proof, and I wasn't going to let her gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. Still, every time she looked at me with those big fake tears, I felt the rage boiling inside. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she betray me like this? I sat her down one night and told her I knew everything about her affair, the money, the forged signature. Her reaction was classic: denial, tears, and a lot of blame shifting. She said she was pressured, that her sister was in a bad situation, and that she only did it because she loved her family. She claimed Jake was just a friend who was helping her with some business stuff. I looked at her, trying to keep my cool, but inside I was boiling. I asked her how she could lie to my face, how she could cheat, steal, and then deny it all when I had the proof staring right at her. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're overreacting. You're just jealous. You don't trust me anymore." That was the moment I realized she was good at manipulation. She'd been doing this for a while, twisting everything around to make me doubt myself. I felt a mix of heartbreak and fury. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and make her see how much she'd hurt me, but I knew that wouldn't help. I had to be strategic. In the following days, I started planning my next move. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in financial crimes and divorce cases. I explained everything: her affair, the forged signature, the stolen money. The lawyer told me I had a very strong case, especially with the forged documents, which could lead to criminal charges. She also warned me that Emily might try to hide or destroy evidence, so I needed to act fast. I also hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, just in case she tried to run or transfer more money. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, pretending to be the perfect wife in public, but behind closed doors, she was increasingly defensive. She accused me of ruining everything, of not trusting her, and of trying to control her. She said she loved me, but her actions told a different story. She'd been cheating, stealing, and lying for months, and she had the nerve to blame me like I was the crazy one. I felt so many conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. I loved her once, but now I saw her for what she really was: a liar and a thief. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything she'd done, how she'd betrayed my trust so completely. I also thought about what I wanted from all this. Part of me wanted to fight, to make her pay for what she'd done. Part of me just wanted to walk away and forget it all. But I knew I couldn't just let her get away with it. Not after everything. I owed it to myself to see justice done, no matter how painful that might be. I also started reaching out to friends and family, telling them what was happening. I needed support, and I needed people to see the truth. Emily was quick to spin her stories, telling everyone I was paranoid, accusing me of trying to control her, and claiming she was the victim. But I had the evidence, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I wanted everyone to know the real story, to see her for what she really was. I knew I had a long road ahead. The legal process would take months, maybe longer, but I was determined. I wouldn't let her destroy me, not without a fight. I had to prepare myself emotionally, because I knew that even if I won in court, I'd still be dealing with the fallout, trust issues, heartbreak, and the feeling of betrayal that would stay with me. Still, I had to do this. I had to hold her accountable, not just for the money, but for the years of lies she'd spun around us. And as I sat there, staring at the evidence I'd gathered, I realized one thing: I wasn't just fighting for money or for justice. I was fighting to reclaim my life, to find some peace after this chaos. Because right now, everything felt broken, and I didn't know if it could ever be fixed. But I knew one thing for sure: she wasn't getting away with it. Not without consequences. And I was going to see to it that she paid for what she'd done. The legal process kicked off faster than I expected, and honestly, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The lawyer I hired was sharp. She told me I had a solid case, especially since I had the forged signatures and the proof of her affair. But she warned me that Emily would try every trick in the book to deny everything, spin stories, and maybe even threaten me with some kind of counter lawsuit. I wasn't naive. I knew this was going to get nasty, and I had to be prepared for the emotional roller coaster ahead. In the meantime, I kept digging. The private investigator I hired turned out to be worth every penny. He found some interesting things: Emily making secret calls late at night, meeting Jake more often than she admitted, and even transferring small amounts of money into her sister's account to cover her tracks. It was clear she was trying to hide the extent of her betrayal, but I had enough to connect the dots. I also discovered she'd been funneling money out of our joint account for months, small amounts here and there, just enough to keep me in the dark. That was the real reason she was so secretive about her finances. I remember sitting there one evening, going through the evidence, feeling the weight of it all. For a moment, I just stared at the pile of documents, the texts, the bank statements, the recorded conversations. It hit me hard how much trust I'd lost. I felt betrayed on every level, emotionally, financially, physically. I'd given her everything, and she'd thrown it all away for Jake and her own greed. The worst part was knowing she was trying to deny everything, playing innocent in court, pretending she was the victim. I knew I had to stay strong, keep my composure, and fight back with everything I had. Emily's behavior got even more manipulative. She started accusing me of abusing her, claiming I was controlling her, and that I should be grateful she stayed with me at all. She insisted that the money transfer was just a mistake or some kind of accident, even though I had the forged signature and bank records to prove otherwise. She was good at twisting facts and making herself seem innocent, classic gaslighting. I caught her lying more than once, but she'd always have some excuse ready, some new lie to cover her tracks. It was exhausting trying to keep up with her stories. One day she had the nerve to sit me down and cry, saying I was ruining her life, that I was overreacting, and that I needed to trust her again. I looked at her, feeling a deep ache in my chest. How could she be so callous? How could she sit there and pretend she hadn't done all this? I wanted to shake her, tell her to stop the act, but instead I just told her I'd had enough, that I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, that I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. The courtroom date was coming up faster than I thought. I'd prepared all my evidence, and my lawyer was confident we had a strong case. But I knew Emily would do everything to spin it in her favor. She'd try to make me look like the bad guy, the jealous husband, the paranoid one. She was already telling friends and family that I was trying to control her, that I was abusing her trust, and that she was just a victim of my insecurities. It made me sick to hear her manipulate everyone like that. I had to stay focused, keep my head clear, and remember why I was doing this, because I deserved justice and I wasn't going to let her get away with ruining my life. Meanwhile, the emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was walking through a fog of betrayal and heartbreak. Every day I'd wake up thinking about her, her lies, her cheating, her theft, and I'd wonder how I'd ever trust again. I'd loved her once, but now I saw her as someone completely different. Someone capable of lying, stealing, and destroying everything we built together. It was a hard pill to swallow, and I knew I'd carry this scar with me for a long time. But what kept me going was the thought that I was fighting for myself, for the truth, for the justice I deserved. I refused to let her manipulate me or make me doubt what I knew was real. I started writing down everything, every lie, every betrayal, every step she took to cover her tracks. I wanted to make sure I had a clear record of everything, in case things got worse. I also started leaning heavily on my friends, telling them everything and asking for support. They were surprised, of course. They'd never seen me like this, so determined and furious. But I knew I had to be strong for me. And so I waited. The court date loomed, and I felt a strange sense of clarity mixed with dread. I knew this wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about respect, trust, and reclaiming my life. I was determined to see this through, no matter how ugly it got. Because at the end of the day, I had to believe that truth would come out and justice would be served. Even if it broke me in the process. I'd come this far and I wasn't backing down now. The days leading up to the court hearing felt like walking a tightrope. Every time I thought about Emily's lies and her manipulations, I got angrier. But I also felt a strange sense of calm, knowing I had done everything I could to prepare. I had all the evidence, Bank statements, forged signatures, recorded conversations, her secret messages. I knew what she was capable of, and I was ready to face whatever she threw at me. Still, it was nerve-wracking, waiting for that day to come. On the morning of the hearing, I woke up feeling a mix of anxiety and resolve. I remember sitting in my car outside the courthouse, taking deep breaths, trying to steady my nerves. When I finally stepped inside, I saw her, Emily, sitting across the hall with her lawyer, trying to look innocent but failing miserably. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw the fear behind her fake smile. She knew she was cornered, and I think that scared her more than anything. The courtroom was tense. My lawyer presented the evidence meticulously, showing the forged signatures, the transfer documents, the proof of her affair with Jake, and the private investigator's reports. Emily's lawyer argued that there was no proof she intentionally stole money or that she was having an affair. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that Emily was under a lot of stress, and that the forged signature was just an honest mistake. But I knew better. I saw her lie, her manipulation, her refusal to admit the truth. My heart pounded as I took the stand. I told the court everything, how I discovered her affair, the bank transfer, her lies, everything. I kept my voice steady even as my hands trembled. I explained how I'd trusted her, how I had given her my life and my money, and how she had betrayed that trust in the worst way. I showed the evidence, the texts, the signatures, the bank documents. I wanted them to see the truth, plain and simple. When it was Emily's turn, she played her part well, crying, saying she was sorry, that she loved me, and that she'd never do anything to hurt me intentionally. She claimed she was pressured, that her sister was in a crisis, and that she only transferred the money out of desperation. She insisted she was innocent of the forgery, that someone must have manipulated her. But her words sounded hollow, and I could see through her act. She was good at lying, but not good enough to fool everyone in that courtroom. As the hearing progressed, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. I knew the judge was listening carefully, weighing all the evidence. I also knew Emily's lies could sway things if she played the victim well enough. But I was confident I had the truth on my side. I knew she'd try to spin it to manipulate the court and everyone watching. That was her style, lying until she got what she wanted, but I refused to let her. When the judge finally announced the verdict, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. They ordered her to return the stolen money, to pay damages, and to face criminal charges for the forgery. She looked stunned, realizing her lies hadn't worked as planned. I saw her lips tighten, her eyes narrow, but she didn't say a word. She knew she'd been beaten at her own game. After the court session, I felt exhausted but also strangely free. I had finally stood up for myself, fought back against her lies, and reclaimed my dignity. Of course, I knew this wasn't the end. Emily was still my wife, technically, but I also knew trust had been shattered beyond repair. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I was determined to rebuild, one step at a time. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Emily moved out of the house, trying to spin her version of events to friends and family. But I stayed firm, refusing to be swayed by her manipulations. I also started the process of healing, therapy, talking to friends, taking care of myself. The betrayal had left scars, but I realized I was stronger than I thought. I'd survived the worst, and I was determined to come out of this better, wiser. Looking back now, I see how much I learned from all this, about trust, about red flags, and about the importance of standing up for myself. No matter how much someone loves you, if they start to lie, cheat, and steal, you have to fight for your life, your dignity, and your peace. I don't know if Emily will ever truly face the consequences of her actions, but I do know I did everything I could to make sure justice was served. And that's a lesson I won't forget anytime soon. In the aftermath of everything that happened, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on what I've been through. Honestly, I never imagined I'd be in a situation where I'd have to fight so hard just to get my life back. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible, trust shattered, love turned into resentment, and all the years we built together seemingly thrown away in a matter of months. But through all of this, I learned some tough lessons about myself and the kind of person I want to be moving forward. First, I realized how important it is to pay attention to the small signs. The secretive behavior, the late-night calls, the sudden distance, those weren't just random things. They were red flags I ignored for too long. I also learned that no matter how much you love someone, you can't ignore your instincts. When something feels off, it probably is. Trusting your gut can save you from years of heartbreak. Second, I learned how crucial it is to stand up for yourself. I could have let her manipulate me, believe her lies, and let her walk all over me. But I chose to fight. I gathered evidence, consulted with legal experts, and didn't back down. That took strength I didn't know I had. Sometimes you have to be your own advocate, especially when someone you trusted is trying to tear you down. Third, I discovered that even in the darkest moments, there's a path toward healing. It's not easy and it's not quick. I've been going to therapy, talking with friends, and taking small steps each day to rebuild my sense of self. The anger and sadness are still there, but I've learned to process them instead of suppressing them. I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, but I do believe I can move on without bitterness. Finally, I've come to understand that some people are capable of incredible betrayal, but that doesn't define me. I'm not the bad person here. I was the victim of deception and greed. I've learned to set boundaries and recognize my worth. I realize now that I don't need someone who lies and steals from me to be happy. I can find happiness on my own, rebuild my life, and trust again, just not with Emily. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I've become more cautious but also more resilient. I've learned that justice isn't always about winning in court. Sometimes it's about reclaiming your peace and dignity. I hope my story serves as a reminder that even when everything seems lost, you can find a way to pick up the pieces and move forward. To anyone going through something similar, my advice is simple. Trust yourself, gather evidence, don't be afraid to stand up for what's right, and never lose sight of your worth. The pain might never fully go away, but it will fade enough to let you breathe again. And in the end, you'll come out stronger than you ever thought possible.